You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Today's show is sponsored by Jack. Take charge of your life personally, financially, and professionally. Visit drjacalyn.com to book an appointment today.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live here on Business Talk Radio and social media. Our show today is all about hope, inspiration, and stories of overcoming adversity. I am your host and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kirschner. I am a certified life and career coach. And my guest today is Emi Kirschner. Let's bring her into the program. Hi, Emi. It's nice to see you.
You too. Super excited to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to spend Friday with you. So thanks for being here. Emi is the CEO of Empress Enterprises. She's also a coach. She's a podcast host, and she's an author. So you are out there making everything happen, helping other people. And I really want to just dive right into it. So you're joining us from Philadelphia today.
I am. I love it here. I just moved into the city a little over a year ago from the burbs of Philly. And this is one of the best places to be.
I love this city. I haven't been there, as I mentioned to you before the program. I haven't been there since February, March, and I really miss it. So I'm really glad to have you join us. One thing I wanted to talk about, I noticed from your background, is that you help people like me who are new entrepreneurs, business owners, offload a lot of the administrative work that just keeps us in the weeds from making money.
Yeah. And there's a place for new entrepreneurs where you feel like you have to do everything yourself because you're bootstrapping a lot of times and you have no money coming in to pay anybody. But it's really counterintuitive because all the time that you're spending to take, 52 trainings or to do all the detail stuff of your business, like the admin, you're taking away from business development. And the thing that I love to share with my clients is that you really want to think about it from the perspective of if I invest in XYZ, and let's just go with like a virtual assistant, because that's, I think, one of the easiest ways to start delegating a lot of different random tasks is if you invest in that and you spend that time that person is doing the things that you are doing, in lead generation, in sales and business development, you're going to end up increasing your sales. Those sales will cover the investment that you made in having somebody, somebody helping you. Never mind the part about just being able to focus on what you do best, which is serve your clients too. Having all the different things running through your head that you need to do on a different day really reduces your performance.
That's so true. You're singing my song. That's for sure. So how do you actually get a business owner to take that first step of, that's like, this is mine, I'm holding on to it for dear life, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends person to person, business owner to business owner. It depends, the conversation's a little bit different, but I can be pretty direct and like, all right, we've talked about this in theory, right? And the next step is you to actually take action on it. So I'll help them with writing job descriptions and employee avatars, and looking at their long-term goals as far as having an org chart. So I'm giving them a little push.
I mean, what's your background and how did you get started with all this?
That's like the $10,000 question. My background's really twisty, turny, windy, non-direct, and completely non-linear, where I've worked in, conference and convention planning, event planning. I've worked in catering. I was a personal chef. I've worked in financial services. I've worked for a very small boutique marketing agency where we served only aftermarket motorcycle products, which I knew absolutely nothing about when I started, like zero. And while if you're looking at it from like a list standpoint, or, how do all of those things intersect? One of the benefits for me is that I have a lot of knowledge about a lot of different industries and how they market and how they scale and the processes they have and the mindset that each one of those entrepreneurs and those CEOs had and continued to grow, right? So that I can bring that to my clients.
I think you just touched on something that's so important, and it obviously differentiates you from a lot of the other coaches out there. You have background in so many different industries, and you can really parlay that and leverage that in helping your clients. That's really phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's been really interesting as I think about stories that I want to share with my social media channels and with my clients. But like some of my best examples and best stories in sales came from catering. And really exploring with people, getting them to try different foods that they were afraid of putting in their mouth.
I'd like to hear more about that. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, so I did everything in catering I started as a server and then worked my way up into event planning, started my own catering business right before I got divorced. So I've had, all of the experiences that you could possibly have in catering, and I loved it. But when I first started as a server, I was working for a really high-end catering company in Massachusetts, and we were serving Borson stuffed orchids, which we did regularly. But this was more of a barbecue type of party, and it was outside. It was the summer, and the people that were attending definitely did not have refined palates. They were really freaked out about putting a flower in their mouth. And I had this one group of people that I kept circling around as I was passing other hors d'oeuvres, et cetera. And you start seeing the same people. So, the extroverts will always connect with you. And I was like, well, why don't you want to try this, et cetera, et cetera. So I understood what their pain point was. And why they were afraid to try something. And once I finally understood that, which was that they were afraid to put something in their mouth that they were going to then have to actually chew and swallow. I'm like, oh, well, here's a napkin, just spit it out. I gave them permission to experiment and to not like it. And they all tried it and they all loved it. And I described the flavor profile to them, but it was such a funny experience. But it so relates to sales and overcoming objections and understanding why your client's stuck somewhere.
Exactly. It sounds like you tried to put yourself in their position and, why is it that they're not eating this? And you went an extra step instead of being like, oh, this is ridiculous.
Right.
You empathized, and then you came up with a solution by describing what it was going to be like. So good for you.
Yeah. And I, on the backside of that, the owner of the catering company was there, and he's food pusher. You've got to get people to eat this. You've got to get people to eat this. And I'm like, but they don't want it. It was a fun time.
My background before I went out on my own was also in event management. And I think it's funny, you and I could probably go on for hours about stories of when you think of events and creating a memory, boy, there's some memories people would like to forget from some events for sure.
I've done everything from brunch for somebody's grandmother that had 6 people to corporate events that had 1,000. And weddings from 20 people to 600. So I've seen it all.
And I think, I want to know what your thoughts are on this, but I think when you're involved with the event planning, there's so much that goes into it that I don't think people realize. They just show up. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, the amount of work, the detail, the planning, I think that really helps you as you go through other types of businesses as an entrepreneur. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Because not only do you have to have a very detailed system and plan, you've got to be able to pivot with that plan. And it's not just like 2 or 3 things. Like you may be down on Z by the time everything starts rocking and rolling, because you can't ever let your client know that, something has happened. You've got to just fix it and move on and make the party go on, because people are investing in having this memorable experience. So yeah, from sales to systems to the mindset of, and being resourceful so that you can just look at whatever situation that's coming up and be like, all right, this is how we're going to handle it, to, really staying in a place of high peak performance, because it's exhausting. The hours are crazy. You're on your feet. You're, doing everything that you could possibly imagine. And I have to say, it was absolutely the time of my life too.
And you're smiling nonstop. You're pasted on your face the whole time.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, the smell there's a certain smell of like leftover food that kind of like permeates your clothes.
Yeah.
And when I smell that from like other caterers, I'm like, home.
I love that.
Yeah.
Emi, we're going to take a commercial break right now, but when we come back, I want to talk about your podcast. It sounds so interesting. So stay with us here on Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live on Business Talk Radio and social media. We'd love to hear from you, by the way. We'd like you to call in. The number is 631-730-5468. And of course, if you're on social media, please put something in the comments section. I know, Emi, you'd love to hear from people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, let us know you're out there. Don't be shy. Okay, we'll be right back after this break.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There are 7.7 billion people on Earth today. 40% of these people are under the age of 25. Young adults are the most fertile mission field in the world today. In Scripture, we see Jesus pouring his life into 12 young adults who he equipped to change the world and all of history. Like Jesus, we believe that the best approach to reach the world with the gospel is to invest in young, emerging leaders and equip them to build disciple-making movements. Concentric is the notion of surrounding and sharing a common center. Our center is the model and strategy of Jesus for both leadership development and ministry formation. As a global alliance, we provide equipping in biblical leadership based on Jesus' example in the New Testament. Jesus modeled for us how to make disciples that reproduce. Focusing on leadership development is key to creating movements that spread the gospel and Jesus' disciple-making strategy to young leaders around the globe. Our Ministry Alliance partners are actively equipping leaders and building movements of multiplication that reproduce the life of Christ. Join us today to equip young leaders with Jesus' strategy that will change cities and nations.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Academy Sedan and Limo is a full-service transportation company serving the Philadelphia metropolitan area with full knowledge of the New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. areas. We pride ourselves on being the most dependable, conscientious company in the industry. Our always on-time service and dependable pricing make us the company to call for any event or occasion. Our vehicles can accommodate any size party for any occasion. Our vehicles range from four-door sedans to SUVs to minivans to limo buses to full-size tour buses and can accommodate groups of 2 to 100. We offer airport shuttle service or over-the-road service without limitation regarding mileage or time, and no drive is too long or too far. So if you find yourself in need of transportation of any type with any vehicle, give us a call at 610-842-4564 and let us show you what a real transportation company can do for you.
Use code ACADEMY2020 to receive 20% off your first 3 rides, including parking and tolls.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Happy Friday and welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live here on Business Talk Radio and social media. My guest today is Emi Kirschner. Hello, thanks for sticking around for the break.
I am having so much fun being here, so thanks for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you here. We have a comment that I absolutely love.
Okay.
This is from Jim Anders. Catering as a business is not a bridge too far to catering to your clients in any business. Great learning environment for all businesses. I've got to go. We'll watch an entirety soon. Thanks so much, Jim. It's great to hear from you. He's in Atlantic City. So
cool. Yeah, I totally agree. And there's so many, as I said, so many amazing learning experiences because you're just in like all these different areas. And it was really cool to see the two co-owners, like growing it. And because I was catering, this was way back in like 2001. It was right after the .com bubble. So, a lot of corporations were cutting budgets as, we were in the middle of the recession and everything. So they really had to get creative about how they were going to stay afloat and continue to grow. And they did. They're still around today.
It's interesting that industry has to do the same thing again, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's move on to your podcast, because first of all, I love the name of it, Tribe of Leaders Podcast. Can you share with us how you started doing a podcast? There's so many people doing podcasts out there. So how did you start? What was the impetus for it?
There's a couple of things. One, my Facebook group is called the Tribe of Leaders as well. And one of my purpose is to grow a community of entrepreneurs, because we're the ones that do things differently, that solve problems that nobody else is really looking at. And for me, everybody is a leader because we have an opportunity to really mentor and impact other people. And I love to be intentional about that. So that's what the community is about for me, and growing your leadership skills and your business. The podcast came about because I thought it would be fun to do. And I think February, it'll be 2 years, if I remember correctly, that we've been live. And I love it because I've had so much fun interviewing other people. But the feedback I get is really cool in that people love that I have a variety of different guests on, and it's not just business content. The purpose for me for the podcast is to really be able to share stories that, of other people's journeys, both the success and the failures, because we all have them. And particularly from the viewpoint of entrepreneurship can be kind of a lonely, isolating journey, regardless of where you're at, because a lot of times people don't understand what's driving you, so passionately to move forward, work long hours, give up a lot of other things. And there's so much to be learned from other people's successes and challenges.
All really good points. And you hit the nail on the head for me, because I am working day and night. When I'm not working, I'm working out or hanging, excuse me, downstairs with my mom. And so to put a podcast together, to get the guest, to pre-interview them, that's a lot of work, right?
Well, yeah.
That's an understatement.
It is, but I mean, like, I've created workflows so that my team can make it as seamless as possible. So for the most part, all I have to do is show up and interview, and I do the pre-interviews too. And that's not everybody does that. A lot of people, you can just schedule a time on the podcast and they'll interview you. I like to have that synergy and a little bit of knowledge, because I think it makes for a more meaningful conversation. And it's nice to be able to reference some of the things that we've talked about in the pre-interview. So, and it helps me filter out too, like, who's not a good fit, because you can't always tell on paper.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Do you prefer to be interviewed, or do you prefer to do the interviewing?
I like both equally. Like, I love to be able to share my stuff because that's super fun, but I love hearing people's stories. Like, that's what I'm really curious about.
It's fascinating. And I'm sure you found this too, but during COVID, we have access to people we never would have probably. You can just go on any social media platform, LinkedIn, and reach out, and somebody's going to get back to you. I have said to myself, I am not going to limit myself on who I contact. And in every case, pretty much, I hear back from someone.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've interviewed people from Australia, from London, from France, all over the country, here, Canada. I'm trying to think of where else. I think that's it. But I've met all of these incredible people. I stay in touch with a lot of them. And it's really fun to see what they're doing even after the show.
That is interesting. And what about your work as a speaker? What types of events do you like to attend where you're a speaker?
Live ones.
Live in person, right?
Yeah, I have not done a ton of speaking this last year. I've done a few things for networking groups, but I don't love, like, I thrive on seeing the audience and being able to read them and what's resonating with them, and being able to pivot quickly if something that I think is a story that comes up that might be more effective for them. And it's so much harder to do that on virtual or on Zoom. And I can see people starting to check out, or they're multitasking too. So I haven't put a ton of time into the speaking this last year, but fingers crossed someday we'll get back to live events. But typically I'm looking at women's conferences, leadership conferences, some networking events, depending on what it is.
So you're available for people out there watching and listening. Emi is available when, I guess, in the summer, maybe.
Yeah. And I have a really fun keynote called Be a Democratic Dictator, the 5 keys to leadership that I learned from being a single mom.
Oh,
That because my kids, like catering, have taught me more about how to step into myself and really, create a fluid team. And interesting too, because like I was a single mom when my kids were 5 and 7, and they're 20. They just are having birthdays, so 20 and 22 now. And I gave them a lot of independence, a lot of responsibility, and huge opportunities to totally fail and mess up. And the way we operate now is still as fluidly as it was then, even though they go off and do their own thing and kind of come back and hang. And it's been really interesting to use that as an experiment, and then be able to take those results and implement that into the team building and the mindset of being a business owner.
And are any of them following in your footsteps as a coach?
No, however, Brian is a music producer who's now helping other musical artists start and then grow and convert from their Instagram pages. And Matthew is just starting his final semester at Thaddeus Stevens out in Lancaster, PA, and he's focused on furniture making and cabinet making. And I expect him to have his own business as well.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sure as a single parent, that was a pretty tough journey. And to see your kids be a success has got to be really heartwarming.
It's really cool to see them be thoughtful and inventive. And I gave them a lot of space to, figure out what your path is. It doesn't have to look like mine. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's. And it's okay to change. So they played with a lot of different things over the years. So now they have a more concrete idea of what really works for them and who they are and what they bring to the table.
I'm really glad to hear that. That's wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
I'm thinking to myself, it's hard to believe the show is almost over, by the way. Shocking. Right. I'm thinking to myself, how do you work with your clients? What is your approach?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to work with me. There's a group program that's a 90-day accelerator, and it's designed to fast track you to the next revenue level, whatever that is for you. And then there's also a 12-month mastermind. It's called Legacy Leaders Mastermind. And you get individual time with me, along with I'm bringing in experts from different fields over the course of this year. And then we have the mastermind piece of it too. But from the working with me perspective and kind of coordinating that with the group, what you end up getting is really being able to sit down and get a lot of clarity about what your vision is. Who is it that you really want to work with? Is what you're offering aligned with not only your clients, but where you want to go long term, and how is that scalable, along with the mindset, the leadership skills, the systems, the processes, so that you can be in that place where you're in the zone of genius and you're bringing on team members to help support you so that you're not working 24/7.
I like that zone of genius. I don't think I've heard that before.
Yeah. Well, that's where I think most of us want to be. Like most entrepreneurs, I'm going to say are more in the visionary field, where they've got all these great ideas and they can get distracted by them. And they're not or they tend to get stuck with the little minutia details of the day-to-day operation. So when you remove yourself out of that and you have the right support people helping you, then you can really skyrocket and just stay in that place where you're having fun all the time. Like imagine doing interviews every day, just getting paid for it.
Phenomenal. Yes.
Right?
Yes. That is what I want.
Right? You have somebody else to do the editing and set it up and the connecting and everything else.
That sounds like a dream come true.
Yeah. So that's my goal with each of my clients, is to get them to that version of whatever it is where they're doing the thing that they love and having a full life. Like that's, my coaching journey started as a health coach. And while health coaching wasn't the thing that was going to drive me forever, I am still a foodie. Being healthy and eating well and just taking care of yourself in general is still a high priority for me. So it's finding that balance that I'm looking for with my clients too. Because if you're sick all the time and working 24/7, who's having fun?
You're right. That's definitely not fun. Do you have a target niche of people you like to work with? In other words, is it basically women-owned business or Go ahead.
Yeah, it's pretty much women-owned businesses. They tend to be service-oriented businesses. The industry can vary, and typically speaking, they are a little more creative and not necessarily an artist, but they're not as left brain dominant with the math and analysis. So that's where the SOPs and the processes and that type of stuff, they tend to fall down on that. And I can help them do that in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming.
Emi, as we come to the end of our show, what advice do you have or coaching do you have for people out there who are entrepreneurs, who are doing everything, and they keep thinking to themselves, well, yeah, that sounds great, but what is the first step that I need to take?
The first step is to identify the things that you don't like doing, or that are more administrative, that you maybe enjoy doing them, like making little pictures on Canva or something like that, but that somebody else can do for you. And look at, what those tasks are, and then develop, whether it's one person or a couple of people, but develop roles for those tasks.
So it sounds like you're saying that it's good to delegate a lot of the tasks. Is that right?
Yes, delegate is my favorite thing.
Delegate, I love that.
And ask for help.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with asking for help, right?
No, that's part of growing a business. If you don't ask for help, people can't help you and can't bring their knowledge base and their strengths that are going to help just contribute to your overall amazingness.
Well, I think it's phenomenal work that you're doing, and I also love your presence. You have this energy to you and a great smile.
Oh,
so how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. So obviously subscribe to the podcast, Tribe of Leaders. We're on Apple Podcasts and I think every other platform you can possibly find a podcast. And I invite people to the Facebook group as well. It's Tribe of Leaders.
And if they want to be a guest on your show?
The best way to do that would probably be to email me. So the email is Emi, it's emi.kirschner, it's KIRSCHNER @gmail.com. Or send me a Facebook message or any other DM type of thing.
Or LinkedIn. You're on all the platforms, right?
On all the platforms.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. I've really learned a lot, and I'll reach out to you because I could use some help myself. So
awesome.
All right, Emi, thank you so much. I'll see you backstage. I'll be there in just a moment.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, folks, for watching. We had a little bit of a technology issue, but what are you going to do? You just have to roll with it. So I really appreciate you being here and your loyalty. We have another program coming up at 6 p.m., The Variety Show, and we have a pet psychic who's going to join us. So that's going to be really interesting. So stay tuned. We hope to see you, and otherwise we'll see you next week, Wednesday, for our business talk show at 2 p.m. And at 4 p.m., we have the A Better You program where people can present and also be panelists. Thursday, we also have A Better You. And then we have the dating show at 4 o'clock. And then Fridays, we have our 5 o'clock and our 6 o'clock. Thanks for being here. Have a great weekend.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.